Okay, so I've tried to make this video a few times now, and I think failed to properly convey my thoughts, so this will be my last attempt, and hopefully I can convey my thoughts well enough. There has been some speculation about what monster we're getting in Title Update 4, which is supported by data mining that has been done, and the monster which is being discussed is not Amatsu, which I thought would be the most obvious choice, but instead Velkhana. And I want to talk about why I think this would be a massive disservice to the game. And I say this as someone who loves Velkhana and thinks it's a fantastic fight and would actually love for it to be added into Rise. So what is my problem? And the problem is this. Rise is nearing the end with regards to its support. I think guaranteed we're going to see 6 title updates. We know we're getting 4 and 5. I'm 100% certain there will be 6. Simply because that way the console release of Rise will have 3 title updates, and the team likes doing things in pairs of 3. World and Iceborne had 3 title updates, and the same goes for Rise. Now, there's an entire discussion to be had about why we're getting title update 4 and 5, and what the implications are. Going very briefly off topic, but I think it's probably because the next Monster Hunter game is still very far off, so that's why we're getting more title updates. Anyway, moving back on topic, there's only a limited amount of title updates that Rise is going to receive before support stops, which also means that there's only a limited amount of space for the roster of monsters. And to have a single spot of that roster taken up by monsters from Monster Hunter World Iceborne is the worst decision they could make, because World is a fantastic game, and it's easily accessible for everyone who's interested in playing it. And it looks amazing, and there are still people actively playing it. The same cannot be said for older Monster Hunter games, which are not easily accessible and don't have active player bases. And those games are old and outdated, and so are the monsters, both in terms of mechanics and visuals. And some of the monsters from those games have never been brought forward into other, more modern Monster Hunter games. So to pass up monsters who people love, and for new players to experience, who don't have the ability to because they require old hardware or an emulator, unlike Monster Hunter World, passing up the chance to give these monsters updated visuals and moves, and instead taking the easy way out of adding monsters from World, because guess what? It's not that hard to do. And proof of that is the fact that base Rise has monsters from World. And I know very little about game development, but I know that if you have the textures and the skeleton, as well as the animations, it's not hard to transfer that stuff over. Now, obviously, dealing with different engines, there might be problems, and maybe not everything is transferable, but I bet it takes significantly less time and effort than to do the same for a monster from a much older game, because you have to find the skeleton for the monster, and the textures. And what are the chances that they just keep that stuff around? From a game that's as old as Frontier, for instance. On top of that, the animations need to be updated, and the textures need to be redone. Same thing with the armor, and the weapons, and the skills need to be changed. I bet if they wanted to, they could easily put every monster from World in Rise. The only problem would be hard drive space on the Switch. So I want them to add monsters from much older games, because they're the ones who need an update the most. So even though there are monsters from World that I would love to see in Rise, like Nergigante, Velkhana, Xeno'jiiva, Odogaron, I think it would be much better to add monsters from older games that haven't returned, like Amatsu, Lagiacrus, Narcilla, Celtis, literally any monster from Frontier. Speaking of which, I think that that's a real possibility, given the recent layered armors all being from Frontier. The Lien and Shui armor sets are both from Frontier, and there's another Frontier set coming in a future event quest, so I think there's a real chance we see another Frontier monster. It might be unlikely, but I think there's a real chance. Anyway, I hope I was able to convey my thoughts well enough. That's all.